The Terran Federation diplomat shuttle glided smoothly into the sprawling spaceport on Zalaxia Prime, capital of the mighty Zalaxian Empire. With humanity's recent admission into the Galactic Union, this marked the first official diplomatic mission to one of the Union's most powerful and influential members. Ambassador Lena Soren gazed out the viewport at the gleaming metropolis rising before her. Towering skyscrapers of chrome and glass reached for the violet skies. Connected by a latticework of sleek transit tubes, vehicles buzzed between the spires like glittering insects. The Zalaxian homeworld was a technological marvel, befitting of a species that had dominated local space for centuries. Lena felt the weight of her mission fully settle upon her shoulders. As humanity's chosen emissary, it was her duty to establish strong ties with the Zalaxians and secure humanity's place in the galactic community. Old power brokers like the Zalaxians would be crucial allies or dangerous adversaries if relations soured. Lena was determined not to let that happen. The shuttle settled onto the designated landing pad with a gentle thud. Lena checked her appearance one final time in the reflective surface of the bulkhead. Her chestnut hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her crisp blue diplomatic uniform free of wrinkles. She mentally rehearsed the traditional Zalaxian greeting one last time before striding down the ramp and onto the landing platform, her small entourage of aides trailing behind. A contingent of Zalaxian soldiers snapped to attention as she emerged, their reptilian skin glistening under the bright sun. Their ceremonial armor was polished to a mirror sheen, all sharp angles and smooth curves that spoke of master craftsmanship. At their head stood a tall, wiry Zalaxian in more functional combat gear, a sidearm prominent at his hip. His posture exuded confidence and authority, clearly the leader of this reception party. Ambassador Soren, he rasped in accented but clear Terran standard. "Welcome to Zalaxia Prime. I am Commander Zalin Krell, head of security for the Zalaxian Diplomatic Corps." Lena executed a precise bow at the waist, arms extended with palms up in the traditional Zalaxian gesture of greeting. "Well met, Commander Krell. On behalf of the Terran Federation, I thank you for this warm welcome." Krell's lipless mouth twitched in what Lena hoped was a smile. Zalaxian facial expressions could be notoriously hard to read. "If you'll follow me, Ambassador, I will escort you to the Palace of Diplomacy, where you will be meeting with the Zalaxian Council." Lena fell into step beside Krell as he led her party across the platform toward a waiting transport shuttle, her mind whirling with everything she knew about Zalaxian culture and politics. As a spacefaring civilization for over a millennium, they were one of the oldest and most technologically advanced species in the galaxy. Their empire spanned dozens of star systems, held together by a complex web of vassal species and puppet governments. Politically, they were considered cunning and ruthlessly pragmatic, always ready to turn the tables to their advantage. Lena would have to be at the top of her game to navigate the potential pitfalls of this first meeting. The shuttle whisked them away from the spaceport and into the heart of the capital city, metal and glass canyons blurring past the viewports. Lena caught glimpses of the famed hanging gardens that draped the facades of the buildings, explosions of alien color, and shapes that softened the harsh lines of the architecture. The Zalaxians might have been fearsome warriors and cunning politicians, but they clearly had an eye for aesthetics as well. They reached the Palace of Diplomacy in short order, the shuttle alighting on a landing pad, jutting from the uppermost level of the massive pyramidal structure. True to its name, the building was a monument to Zalaxian power and prestige, all soaring lines and gleaming surfaces that seemed to defy gravity. Lena couldn't help but feel a pang of envy. Humanity's own diplomatic facilities were functional at best, with little thought given to form or grandeur. They had much to learn from their galactic neighbors. Commander Krell led them through the winding halls of the palace, past stern-faced guards and scurrying clerks, until they reached a cavernous chamber dominated by a large circular table. Holograms flickered above the polished surface, displaying star charts and trade routes that crisscrossed Zalaxian space. The far wall was a single enormous viewport that looked out over the capital city, a breathtaking vista that underscored the Empire's might. Several Zalaxians were already seated at the table, their ornate robes and elaborate headdresses marking them as high-ranking officials. At the head of the table sat a particularly regal-looking individual, his scales a deep purple that bordered on black. His yellow eyes fixed on Lena as she entered, sharp and assessing. "Ambassador Soren," he said, rising to his feet. I am High Counselor Talon Zyre, first among equals on the Zalaxian Council. We are honored to welcome humanity's first emissary to our great empire. Lena repeated the bow from earlier, holding it a fraction longer in deference to Zyre's status. The honor is mine, High Counselor. The Terran Federation is grateful for this opportunity to forge closer ties between our peoples. Zyre gestured for her to take a seat at the table, which she did, her aides arraying themselves behind her. Your species has made quite the impression since you burst onto the galactic scene, Zyre said, steepling his long fingers. Uplifted by the Peregrine just a few short decades ago, and already you've gained admittance to the Galactic Union. Most impressive. Lena inclined her head in acknowledgement of the compliment. Humanity has always been a quick study, she said carefully. We are eager to learn from those with more experience and take our place as a responsible member of the galactic community. And what do you hope to gain from a relationship with the Zalaxian Empire? Ambassador, this from one of the other counselors, a female with startling green scales. What can humanity offer us that we do not already possess? Lena had been expecting this question and had her answer ready. Humanity brings a fresh perspective and a spirit of innovation to the galactic stage, she said confidently. Our scientists and engineers are already making strides in fields like biotechnology and nanorobotics that could have applications across the Union. And our culture, while young compared to the great civilizations of the galaxy, has a rich history of art, music, and philosophy that we are eager to share with our galactic neighbors. The green-scaled counselor looked unimpressed, but Zyre held up a hand before she could respond. The Zalaxian Empire values the contributions of all its member species, he said smoothly. I'm sure humanity will find its niche in due time. For now, let us discuss the practical matters of establishing formal diplomatic relations between our governments. The meeting stretched on for hours as they hammered out the details of embassy placements, trade agreements, and cultural exchange programs. Lena held her own against the council's sharp questioning and subtle barbs, drawing on every ounce of her training and experience. By the time they adjourned for the day, she was mentally and emotionally drained, but satisfied with the progress they had made. It was a strong start to what she hoped would be a long and fruitful relationship between humanity and the Zalaxian Empire. As Commander Krell escorted her back to her quarters in the palace's diplomatic wing, Lena allowed herself a small smile of triumph. She had navigated the treacherous waters of Zalaxian politics and emerged unscathed. There would be challenges ahead, no doubt, but for now, she could rest easy, knowing that she had laid a solid foundation for the future. The next few days passed in a blur of meetings and social engagements as Lena worked to build rapport with the Zalaxian counselors and other key officials. She toured the city's great museums and university, marveling at the depth and breadth of Zalaxian art and scholarship. She sampled exotic foods at state dinners and tried her hand at traditional Zalaxian dances at glittering balls. Through it all, she wore a mask of polite interest and diplomatic charm, never letting her true feelings show. Because beneath the surface, Lena could sense an undercurrent of tension running through the Zalaxian power structure. There were factions within the council who viewed humanity's rapid rise with suspicion and even outright hostility. They feared that the Terran Federation would upset the delicate balance of power in the galaxy and challenge Zalaxian hegemony. Lena did her best to allay those fears, stressing humanity's desire for peaceful coexistence and mutual benefit, but she knew that words alone would not be enough. The true test came on the final day of her visit, when High Counselor Zyre invited her to a private meeting in his office at the top of the palace. Lena accepted with a mix of anticipation and trepidation, knowing that this conversation would likely set the tone for relations between their two species for years to come. Zyre's office was a study in understated opulence, with priceless works of art adorning the walls and plush fabrics covering the furniture. The counselor himself sat behind a massive desk of polished black stone, his yellow eyes glinting in the soft light. He gestured for Lena to take a seat opposite him, which she did, smoothing her skirt beneath her. Ambassador Soren Zyre began, his voice a low rumble. I must confess, I had my doubts about humanity's readiness to join the galactic community. Your species is so young, so untested. But you have conducted yourself with poise and skill during your visit, and for that, you have earned my respect. Lena inclined her head in acknowledgement of the compliment. You honor me, High Counselor. I only hope that my actions have laid the groundwork for a strong and lasting partnership between our peoples. Zyre leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. That remains to be seen, Ambassador. The Zalaxian Empire has not endured for 1,000 years by blindly trusting in the goodwill of others. We must always be vigilant against those who would seek to undermine our power and position. Lena felt a chill run down her spine at the implied threat in Zyra's words. She chose her next words carefully. I assure you, High Counselor, that the Terran Federation has no designs on Zalaxian territory or influence. We seek only to take our place as a peaceful and productive member of the galactic community. Zyra's lipless mouth curved in what might have been a smile. And yet, your species possesses certain ... qualities that could make you a formidable rival if your ambitions outpace your wisdom. Your adaptability, your drive to explore and expand. These are admirable traits, but they could also be cause for concern. Lena forced herself to meet Zyra's gaze steadily, refusing to be cowed. With respect, High Counselor, I believe that humanity's greatest strength lies in our capacity for cooperation and mutual understanding. We have no desire to rival the Zalaxian Empire, only to work alongside you as partners and friends. Zyra was silent for a long moment, his eyes boring into Lena's. She held his gaze, willing him to see the sincerity in her words. Finally, he gave a slow nod. Very well, Ambassador. I will choose to take you at your word, for now. The Zalaxian Empire will welcome the Terran Federation as a member of the galactic community, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. But know this, we will be watching you closely. Any sign of aggressive expansion or territorial ambition will be met with swift and decisive action. Lena let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. I understand, High Counselor. You have my word that the Terran Federation will strive to be a model galactic citizen. We will not give you cause to doubt our intentions. Zyra rose to his feet, signaling that the meeting was at an end. See that you don't, Ambassador. The galaxy is a vast and wondrous place, but it can also be cruel to those who do not tread carefully. Choose your path wisely. With those ominous words hanging in the air, Lena took her leave of the High Counselor's office, her mind racing with the implications of their conversation. She had achieved her mission of establishing diplomatic ties with the Zalaxian Empire, but it was clear that the road ahead would be far from smooth. Humanity would have to watch its step as it navigated the treacherous currents of galactic politics, lest it stumble and fall. As she boarded the shuttle that would take her back to her waiting ship, and the long journey home, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding. The galaxy was a big place full of wonders and dangers in equal measure. Humanity had taken its first steps onto the galactic stage, but the real challenges were still to come. She could only hope that they would be up to the task. The journey back to Earth was long and uneventful, giving Lena plenty of time to reflect on her experiences on Zalaxia Prime and the challenges that lay ahead for humanity. She pored over the copious notes she had taken during her meetings with the Zalaxian counselors, looking for any clues or insights that might help guide the Terran Federation's future dealings with the Empire. One thing became clear to her. As she reviewed her notes, the Zalaxians were a proud and cunning people, fiercely protective of their power and position in the galaxy. They would not take kindly to any perceived threats to their dominance, and they would be quick to act against anyone who crossed them. Lena knew that humanity would have to tread carefully in its interactions with the Empire, always striving to maintain a balance between assertiveness and deference. When she finally arrived back on Earth, Lena was immediately summoned to a debriefing with the Terran Federation's top leaders, including the President herself. She gave a full accounting of her mission, sparing no detail of her conversations with the Zalaxian counselors or her impressions of their society and culture. The President listened intently, her brow furrowed in thought. "You've done well, Ambassador Soren," she said at last. "Establishing formal diplomatic relations with the Zalaxian Empire is a major step forward for humanity. But as you've noted, we will have to be cautious in our dealings with them going forward. We cannot afford to appear weak, but neither can we risk provoking their ire." Lena nodded in agreement. "Yes, Madam President. I believe that our best course of action is to focus on building strong economic and cultural ties with the Empire, while also working to forge alliances with other galactic powers. The more friends we have in the galaxy, the less likely the Zalaxians will be to view us as a threat." The President considered this for a moment, then gave a decisive nod. "Agreed. I will task our diplomats and trade representatives with pursuing closer ties with the other members of the Galactic Union. In the meantime, Ambassador Soren, I want you to continue your work with the Zalaxians. Keep building those bridges, but also keep a close eye on their actions and intentions. We need to know if there are any rumblings of discontent or hostility towards humanity within their ranks. Lena felt a thrill of excitement at the prospect of continuing her work with the Zalaxians, even as she recognized the heavy responsibility that came with it. "I won't let you down, Madam President," she said firmly. "I will do everything in my power to ensure that humanity and the Zalaxian Empire remain on good terms." And so Lena threw herself into her work with renewed vigor, shuttling back and forth between Earth and Zalaxia Prime as she worked to build strong relationships with key members of the Zalaxian government and business community. She brokered trade deals and cultural exchange programs, always striving to showcase the best of what humanity had to offer. At the same time, she kept a watchful eye on the internal politics of the Empire, monitoring the various factions and power blocks that jockeyed for influence within the Council. She cultivated a network of informants and allies who kept her apprised of the latest developments and helped her navigate the treacherous waters of Zalaxian diplomacy. As the months turned into years, Lena began to see signs of progress in her efforts. The Zalaxians seemed to be warming to humanity's presence on the galactic stage, and there were even whispers of a possible formal alliance between the two powers. Lena knew that such an alliance would be a major coup for the Terran Federation, cementing its place as a major player in galactic affairs. But even as she celebrated these successes, Lena couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. There were still those within the Zalaxian power structure who viewed humanity with suspicion and hostility, and she sensed that they were growing bolder in their opposition. There were rumors of secret meetings and backroom deals, of factions within the Empire that were plotting to undermine the burgeoning human-Zalaxian partnership. Lena did her best to investigate these rumors, but she found herself stymied at every turn by the Byzantine politics of the Zalaxian court. She couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something, some crucial piece of the puzzle that would make everything clear. The answer came from an unexpected quarter. One of Lena's most trusted Zalaxian informants, a mid-level bureaucrat named Kellic, requested an urgent meeting with her in a secluded corner of the palace gardens. Lena agreed, sensing the urgency in Kellic's message. When she arrived at the designated spot, she found Kellic pacing nervously, his scales a pale shade of gray. "Ambassador Soren," he said without preamble, "I have uncovered a plot that threatens to destroy the peace between our peoples." Lena felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of plot?" she asked, keeping her voice low. Kellic glanced around furtively before continuing. "There is a faction within the Council, led by High Counselor Zaire himself, that seeks to provoke a war with the Terran Federation. They believe that humanity's growing influence in the galaxy poses a threat to Zalaxian supremacy, and they are willing to do whatever it takes to eliminate that threat." Lena's mind raced as she tried to process this information. High Counselor Zaire, the very same Zalaxian who had welcomed her so graciously on her first visit to Zalaxia Prime, was plotting against humanity. It seemed almost too incredible to believe. "What evidence do you have of this plot?" she asked, trying to keep the skepticism out of her voice. Kellic produced a data chip from his robes and handed it to her. "This contains recordings of secret meetings between Zaire and his conspirators," he said. "They speak openly of their plans to stage a series of attacks on human colonies and ships, to be blamed on rogue elements within the Zalaxian military. They hope to provoke a response from the Terran Federation that will give them an excuse to declare war." Lena felt a sinking feeling in the pit of her stomach as the full implications of Kellic's words sank in. If Zaire's plan succeeded, it would mean the end of the fragile peace between humanity and the Zalaxian Empire, and the beginning of a bloody and destructive war that could engulf the entire galaxy. She knew that she had to act fast to prevent this from happening. "Thank you, Kellic," she said, pocketing the data chip. "I will take this information to my superiors immediately. With any luck, we can put a stop to Zaire's plans before it's too late." But even as she said the words, Lena knew that it wouldn't be that simple. Zaire was a powerful and influential figure within the Zalaxian government, and he would not go down without a fight. She would need to gather more evidence, build a case against him that was airtight and unassailable. And so began a dangerous game of cat and mouse, as Lena worked to unravel the threads of Zaire's conspiracy while staying one step ahead of his agents and operatives. She called in every favor she was owed, every contact she had cultivated over her years as a diplomat, in her quest to bring the truth to light. It was a nerve-wracking and exhausting time, filled with late-night meetings in shadowy corners of the palace and tense confrontations with hostile Zalaxian officials. More than once, Lena found herself in mortal danger, as Zyra's assassins and saboteurs tried to silence her before she could expose his treachery. But through it all, Lena remained determined and focused, driven by a sense of duty to her people and to the cause of peace. She knew that the stakes were too high to give up, that the fate of the galaxy itself hung in the balance. Finally, after months of painstaking investigation and political maneuvering, Lena had gathered enough evidence to bring her case before the full Zalaxian Council. In a dramatic showdown in the council chambers, she laid out the proof of Zyra's treachery for all to see, exposing his lies and machinations for the entire galaxy to witness. There was a moment of stunned silence as the councilors processed the magnitude of what they were seeing. Then, one by one, they began to turn against Zyra, denouncing his actions as a betrayal of the Zalaxian people and a threat to the stability of the galaxy. In the end, Zyra was stripped of his rank and titles and banished from Zalaxian space forever. The crisis had been averted, and the fragile peace between humanity and the Zalaxian Empire had been preserved. But Lena knew that the battle was far from over. There would always be those who sought to sow discord and conflict between the great powers of the galaxy, and it would take constant vigilance and diplomacy to keep the peace. As she boarded her ship to return to Earth, Lena couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and accomplishment. She had faced down one of the greatest threats to galactic stability in recent memory and emerged victorious. She knew that there would be other challenges ahead, other crises to be averted and conflicts to be resolved. But for now, she could take a moment to savor her triumph and to reflect on the incredible journey that had brought her to this point. She had started out as a young and inexperienced diplomat, thrust into the heart of galactic politics with little more than her wits and her determination to guide her. Now she was a seasoned veteran of the diplomatic corps, respected and admired by her peers and feared by her enemies. She had played a pivotal role in shaping the course of galactic history, and she knew that her work was far from done. As her ship lifted off from the surface of Zalaxia Prime and set a course for Earth, Lena gazed out at the stars streaking past her viewport. She thought of all the worlds she had visited, all the beings she had met, and the challenges she had faced. And she knew that, no matter what the future held, she would always be ready to face it head-on, with courage and resolve. For she was a diplomat of the Terran Federation, a guardian of peace and a champion of justice. And though the galaxy might be vast and filled with danger, she knew that as long as beings like her were willing to stand up for what was right, there would always be hope for a brighter tomorrow. As the ship hurtled through the void of space, Lena closed her eyes and let the hum of the engines lull her into a peaceful sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new adventures, but for now she could rest easy, knowing that she had done her part to make the galaxy a safer and more peaceful place. And with that thought, Lena drifted off into a dreamless sleep, ready to face whatever the future might bring with courage, determination, and an unwavering commitment to the cause of peace. As Lena settled back into her routine on Earth, she found that her experiences on Zalaxia Prime had changed her in ways she had never expected. She had always been driven and ambitious, but now she felt a renewed sense of purpose, a deep conviction that her work as a diplomat was more important than ever before. She threw herself into her duties with a passion, working tirelessly to build bridges between humanity and the other great powers of the galaxy. She negotiated trade agreements and cultural exchange programs, brokered peace treaties and alliance pacts. She became known as one of the most skilled and effective diplomats in the Terran Federation, a true master of the art of galactic statecraft. But even as she achieved success after success, Lena never forgot the lessons she had learned on Zalaxia Prime. She knew that the galaxy was a dangerous and unpredictable place, and that the peace she had fought so hard to achieve was always fragile and tentative. She made it her mission to be ever vigilant, to watch for signs of trouble on the horizon, and to nip potential conflicts in the bud before they could escalate into full-blown crises. She cultivated a vast network of informants and allies across the galaxy, always staying one step ahead of those who would seek to undermine the cause of peace. As the years passed, Lena rose through the ranks of the diplomatic corps, eventually becoming the Terran Federation's ambassador to the Galactic Union itself. It was a position of immense responsibility and influence, and Lena knew that she had the power to shape the course of galactic history itself. She used that power wisely and judiciously, always striving to find common ground between the various factions and interests that made up the galactic community. She brokered historic agreements between long-standing rivals, and helped to establish new institutions and frameworks for cooperation and mutual understanding. Through it all, Lena remained true to her core values of peace, justice, and compassion. She never lost sight of the fact that, at the end of the day, her work was about improving the lives of the countless billions of beings who called the galaxy home. And so, as she entered the twilight of her career, Lena could look back on a life well lived, a legacy of service and dedication that would endure long after she was gone. She had faced down tyrants and despots, negotiated with kings and emperors, and helped to steer the course of galactic history itself. But perhaps her greatest achievement was the simple fact that, thanks to her tireless efforts, the galaxy was a safer, more peaceful, and more prosperous place than it had been when she first set out on her journey all those years ago. As she prepared to step down from her position as ambassador, Lena knew that there would always be new challenges and new threats to the cause of peace. But she also knew that there would always be those who were willing to take up the mantle and carry on the fight, to work tirelessly for a better tomorrow. And so, with a sense of pride and accomplishment, Lena passed the torch to a new generation of diplomats and peacemakers, confident in the knowledge that the future of the galaxy was in good hands. As she settled into a well-earned retirement on her home world, surrounded by friends and loved ones, Lena often found herself gazing up at the stars, marveling at the wonders and mysteries of the universe. She knew that she had played a small but important role in the grand tapestry of galactic history, and that her legacy would endure long after she was gone. And so, as she looked back on a life well lived, Lena could only smile and be grateful for the opportunities she had been given, and for the chance to make a difference in the lives of so many. She had always strived to be a force for good in the galaxy, and in the end she knew that she had succeeded beyond her wildest dreams. With a sense of peace and contentment, Lena closed her eyes and drifted off into a peaceful sleep, knowing that the galaxy was a better place because of her, and that her legacy would endure for generations to come. And so ends the tale of Lena Soren, the galactic emissary, a true hero of peace and diplomacy in a galaxy that desperately needed both.